Imagine standing on the edge of a frozen European plain roughly 40,000 years ago, your body wrapped in the scraped hides of animals you barely managed to kill, your teeth chattering in a climate your African evolved biology was never designed to endure, and your stomach growling with a hunger that has become your permanent companion. You are not the apex predator here. You are a scrawny bipedal primate with pathetically thin fur, laughably blunt claws, and a top sprint speed that would embarrass a moderately motivated squirrel. Around you, the landscape is a meat locker ruled by things that want to eat you. There are cave lions the size of modern tigers, massive cave hyenas that hunted in bone-crushing packs, and woolly mammoths that could turn your entire family into a red smear with a casual swing of a tusk. And then there are the Neanderthals. They are everywhere. They are stronger than you. They are built for this cold, like refrigerators are built for ice, and their brains are enormous, literally larger than yours. They have been here for hundreds of thousands of years. They know these valleys, these caves, these migration routes. You are the new kid in the neighborhood, and by every reasonable metric of evolutionary fitness, you should be dead within a week. But you are not dead. You are not even struggling. In fact, you are about to take over the entire planet, and the Neanderthals are about to vanish so completely that modern humans will spend centuries arguing about whether they were even a separate species. The reason for this impossible reversal is not your opposable thumbs, though they are nice. It is not your increasingly sophisticated spears, though they help. It is not your burgeoning language, though that matters too. The reason you are going to win is because you have made a deal with a monster. You have invited a cold-blooded, flesh-ripping carnivore into your camp, into your bed, into your family, and you have somehow convinced it that you are worth more alive than dead. That monster is the wolf, and the deal you struck is the single most important business transaction in the history of life on Earth. To understand why this alliance was not just helpful but literally a matter of species survival, we have to look at what you were up against without it. The Neanderthal problem is the perfect place to start because it exposes just how little raw individual intelligence and physical power actually matter in the grand evolutionary ledger. Neanderthals were, by any standard biological measure, superior humans. They had more muscle mass than a modern Olympic wrestler packed onto a frame that was shorter and stockier, meaning they lost less heat and could survive winters that would kill a Homo sapiens in days. Their cranial capacity was bigger than ours, suggesting a brain that was processing information at a scale we can only guess at. They made tools, they buried their dead, they almost certainly had some form of language, and they had been successfully hunting the most dangerous animals in Europe for nearly 500,000 years. They were not brutes. They were not failures. They were a highly successful species that had solved the problem of Ice Age survival better than any other hominin on the planet. And then we showed up, and within a few thousand years, they were gone. Not assimilated, not outbred, but erased. The archaeological record shows their populations collapsing, their territories shrinking, and their distinctive tool cultures vanishing like smoke. So what happened? Why did the superior species lose? The answer is social architecture, and specifically, the social architecture of hunting. Neanderthals hunted big game, there is no doubt about that. The bones of mammoths, bison, and giant deer are found in their sites in massive quantities, but they hunted them in a way that was fundamentally solitary and small group. The evidence suggests that Neanderthals typically hunted in very small parties, maybe 2 or 3 individuals, using close quarters thrusting spears to bring down animals that weighed several tons. This was bravery bordering on insanity, and it came with a horrific injury rate. Neanderthal skeletons are a catalog of trauma that would make a modern emergency room physician weep. Healed fractures, skull trauma, and severe bodily damage are so common in Neanderthal remains that scientists have described their lives as a constant cycle of violent injury and painful recovery. They were essentially living the life of a rodeo bull rider, except the bulls weighed 10,000 pounds and were actively trying to kill them. This hunting style was effective enough to sustain their populations for eons, but it was a bottleneck. It required enormous individual strength. It limited the size of the game they could reliably take, and it meant that injuries to even 1 or 2 hunters could devastate a small band's food security for weeks. Now consider the wolf. The wolf is a pack hunter that specializes in running down prey over long distances, using coordinated strategy, communication, and sheer endurance to exhaust animals many times their size. Wolves do not wrestle bison to the ground. They run them until their lungs give out, until their hooves crack, until they are too tired to fight back, and then they swarm. The wolf pack is essentially a distributed biological weapon system, a surveillance and termination network that operates on scent, sound, and social coordination. And here is the critical insight. Neanderthals could not plug into this network. Their hunting style was too individualistic, too physically intimate, too incompatible with the wolf's operational doctrine. A wolf pack does not need a muscle-bound hominin with a stabbing spear trying to wrestle an aurochs from 2 feet away. A wolf pack needs a partner who can communicate, coordinate, and contribute from a distance. Neanderthals were the wrong species for the job. Homo sapiens, on the other hand, were a perfect fit. We did not just tolerate wolves. We did not just scavenge near them. We merged with them. The process of dog domestication was not a moment in time, not a single Neolithic genius who found a puppy and thought it would make a cute camp accessory. It was a slow, grinding, multi-millennial fusion of 2 apex social predators who recognized something in each other. The wolves that eventually became dogs were not the ones that avoided human camps. They were the ones that were bold enough to approach, smart enough to read human social cues, and tame enough to suppress their urge to bite the hand that fed them. In return, they got access to a staggering new food source, our garbage. Human hunter-gatherer camps were magnets for scavengers. We left behind bones, offal, and scraps that represented a calorie bonanza for any carnivore willing to risk proximity. The wolves that could tolerate our presence, that could control their aggression, and that could interpret our body language gained a reliable, low-effort food supply that required none of the energy expenditure of a full hunt. Over generations, these proto-dogs became more docile, more communicative, and more dependent on human social structures. Their brains changed, their bodies changed, and their entire psychological architecture rewired itself around us. But here is where the calculus gets brutal and beautiful. This was not a charitable arrangement. This was not humans adopting pets. This was humans acquiring a military asset that multiplied our combat effectiveness by a factor that is almost impossible to overstate. Imagine you are a Homo sapiens hunting party in the late Pleistocene. You are tracking a herd of reindeer or a woolly mammoth across a landscape of tundra and taiga. Without dogs, your options are limited and miserable. You can try to ambush the animal, which requires getting close enough to throw a spear, without being detected by senses that are far sharper than yours. You can try to run the animal off a cliff, which requires terrain knowledge and a massive amount of luck. Or you can try to wound it and track it for miles until it bleeds out or collapses from exhaustion, which exposes you to every other predator in the region and risks the animal escaping entirely. The energy math is terrible. The risk is astronomical. The return is uncertain. Now add dogs. Suddenly, you have a mobile sensory array that can detect prey from miles away by scent. You have a pursuit unit that can run down a wounded mammoth at 20 miles per hour and hold it at bay without needing to kill it themselves. You have a pinning force that can harass and distract a massive animal, keeping its attention focused on the snapping, circling threats at its feet, while you and your fellow humans stand at a safe distance and throw spears with the calm, calculated precision of an artillery crew. The dogs are not pets in this scenario. They are the line. They are the infantry holding the enemy in place while the ranged units do the damage. They are the reconnaissance drones, the tanks, and the riot control all in one furry package. And the cost of this military upgrade? Table scraps, rotting meat, the parts of the carcass we did not want. We were essentially running the most lopsided mercenary contract in biological history. We paid our soldiers in garbage, and in exchange, they gave us the ability to hunt prey that would have been suicidal to approach alone. The calorie return on investment is where this alliance moves from interesting to civilization defining. A single mammoth represents millions of calories. A single successful hunt can feed a band of 30 or 40 humans for weeks, provided they can preserve the meat. But mammoths are not easy to kill, and the competition for their carcasses is ferocious. Without dogs, a human hunting party that managed to bring down a mammoth would then face a race against time and scavengers. Cave hyenas, with their bone-crushing jaws, could strip a carcass overnight. Lions and other predators would be drawn to the scent of blood from miles away. The humans would have to butcher the animal in a frenzy, working through the night, constantly on guard, and still likely lose a significant portion of the meat to competitors. With dogs, this dynamic changes entirely. A pack of dogs can hold a carcass site against scavengers. They can create a perimeter of teeth and noise that keeps the hyenas at bay while the humans work. They can even assist in the butchery, tearing at hide and sinew with jaws far better suited to the task than human stone tools. The efficiency gains are staggering. More meat preserved means more calories per hunt. More calories per hunt means more surviving children. More surviving children means larger bands. Larger bands mean more cooperative hunters, more defenders, and more innovators. The dog was not just a hunting tool, it was a demographic multiplier. It allowed human populations to grow at rates that would have been impossible without it, and growing populations are the engine of cultural and technological complexity. Every subsequent invention, every pottery shard, every cave painting, every burial ritual, every linguistic innovation was built on a foundation of calories that dogs helped us acquire and protect. But the hunting advantage, as massive as it was, is only half the story. The other half is what dogs did for us when we were not hunting, when we were sleeping, when we were vulnerable, when we were, in a very real sense, blind and deaf. Human senses are, to be blunt about it, a biological embarrassment compared to the standard equipment of a wild carnivore. Our night vision is essentially non-existent. Our sense of smell is so weak that we cannot detect a rotting carcass from 20 feet away if the wind is wrong. Our hearing is fine for conversational frequencies, but utterly useless for detecting the soft pad of a lion's foot on frozen ground from 100 meters out. For most of our evolutionary history, these limitations were not just inconvenient. They were a death sentence waiting to happen. Every night, when the sun went down and the temperature plummeted and the Ice Age darkness closed in, our ancestors were sitting ducks. A cave lion or a leopard or a cave hyena or even a rival human band could approach a sleeping camp with near total impunity. The only defense was constant vigilance, which meant someone had to stay awake, which meant someone was burning calories and accumulating sleep debt while everyone else rested. It was a brutal tax on a species that was already struggling to survive. And then we outsourced it. We brought dogs into our camps, and suddenly we had a biological alarm system that never got tired, never got bored, and never missed a cue. A dog can hear frequencies we cannot even perceive. A dog can detect the scent of an approaching predator on the wind long before it becomes visible. A dog can feel the vibration of footsteps through the ground. And critically, a dog can wake the entire camp with a vocalization that is impossible to ignore. The bark is not just noise. It is an evolutionary innovation that transformed human sleep from a dangerous liability into a strategic asset. For the first time in our species' history, we could sleep deeply. We could enter REM sleep, the stage of sleep associated with memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and cognitive recovery, without the constant low-grade terror that a predator was about to drag us into the dark. Deep sleep is not a luxury. It is a neurobiological necessity for a brain as complex as ours. Chronic sleep deprivation degrades decision-making, impairs immune function, and destroys the capacity for the kind of abstract, long-term planning that defines human cognition. By giving us the ability to sleep safely, dogs did not just protect our bodies, they accelerated our brains. They created the neurological conditions under which human intelligence could flourish, innovate, and eventually build the complex social and technological systems that define our species. This co-evolutionary relationship ran both ways, and the transformation of the wolf into the dog is one of the most profound examples of directed evolution in the natural world. We did not just change wolves by feeding them. We changed their minds. Modern dogs, even primitive breeds, possess a cognitive ability that is absolutely unique among non-human animals. They can read human communicative cues with a facility that surpasses chimpanzees, our closest living relatives. Point at an object and a dog will look where you are pointing. not because it is trained, but because it is genetically wired to interpret human gestures, human gaze, and human emotional states. This ability is the product of tens of thousands of years of selective pressure, favoring wolves that could integrate into human social networks. The wolves that could not read us, that could not suppress their aggression, that could not synchronize their behavior with ours, were killed or driven away. The ones that could were fed, bred, and protected. Over millennia, this selection sculpted a creature whose brain is literally different from a wolf's. Dogs have smaller brains than wolves, but they have larger regions dedicated to social cognition and olfactory processing. They have lost the wolf's capacity for independent problem solving in favor of a hyper-developed ability to cooperate with humans. They are not degraded wolves. They are optimized symbionts. They evolved to fill a niche that did not exist until we created it, the niche of the human partner, and we changed too. The presence of dogs in human camps selected for human traits that facilitated this cooperation. We became better at reading canine body language, better at interpreting vocalizations, better at forming emotional bonds with non-human animals. The oxytocin feedback loop between humans and dogs is real and measurable. When a human and a dog gaze into each other's eyes, both species experience a surge of the same bonding hormone that mediates attachment between human mothers and infants. We did not just domesticate dogs, they domesticated us. We became a species capable of deep cross-species empathy, a trait that would later enable us to domesticate horses, cattle, sheep, and goats, and that would eventually form the emotional foundation for the agricultural revolution and everything that followed. So when we look back at the extinction of the Neanderthals, at the conquest of Europe, at the eventual domination of the entire planet by a single species of African ape, we have to be honest about what we are looking at. We were not the smartest, we were not the strongest, we were not the fastest or the hardiest or the most individually capable. We were the most social, the most cooperative, and the most willing to form alliances outside our own species. The Neanderthals failed because they were too complete. They were too self-sufficient. They did not need a wolf pack because they had their own muscle, their own brains, their own small group dynamics. And that self-sufficiency was a trap. It limited their hunting efficiency, it exposed them to higher injury rates, it prevented them from scaling up their social organizations, and it left them without the biological alarm system that allowed Homo sapiens to sleep, to dream, to plan, and to innovate. We won because we were willing to share our bed with a carnivore. We won because we looked at a creature that could kill us in seconds and saw not a threat, but a partner. We won because we understood at some deep pre-linguistic level that survival is not a solo sport, and that the most powerful technology in the world is not a better spear, but a better relationship. And here is the final clinical truth that we have to sit with. Every skyscraper, every smartphone, every symphony, every spaceship, every hospital, every book, every government, every religion, everything that makes up the staggering complexity of modern human civilization was built on a foundation of calories and security that dogs helped us acquire. Without them, the mammoths would have stayed in the tundra, the predators would have owned the night, and our ancestors would have been just another failed hominin experiment, their bones ground to dust by the glaciers and forgotten by time. We did not build this world alone. We built it with them. The alliance between human and dog is not a charming footnote in the history of our species. It is the central transaction, the original deal, the first and most important partnership we ever made. And when you look at your dog today, when you see that ridiculous, loyal, food-obsessed creature staring up at you with eyes that have been genetically tuned to love you over 40,000 years, understand what you are looking at. You are looking at the reason you exist. You are looking at the monster that saved us. You are looking at the co-author of human history. And without them, we would have been nothing but meat.